Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're doing everybody's favorite, the power rankings. It's Memorial Day weekend down there for my friends in the United States of America. Us Canadians had the long weekend the weekend before, so unfortunately, back in the office tomorrow. But guys, before I jump into this, I'd just like to give this a chance to let you guys know that I am tweeting every day out there on Twitter. So if you guys want to follow along more content, leadership, more personal development, make sure you follow me on Twitter. I'll put that down below. Otherwise, it's that time. Starting at the bottom, a new team in the bottom. We got the Kansas City Royals 0-2 against Arizona, 2-2 against Minnesota over the weekend. Royals don't have a lot going for them. Pretty much one of the worst records in the league and one of the weakest divisions in the league. I just think that their run, 2-8 in the last 10 has not been great. And their star players that you expected them to have better seasons just aren't performing the way you thought they would. Whit Merrifield having a pretty disastrous season, and no real candidates are jumping out to take this team leadership role. So I think just based on the division, all that, Royals are now the bottom feed in the MLB. Number 29. Up one spot from last week, we got the Nationals 1-2 against the Dodgers. They won the series against the Rockies over the weekend. Some offense. We're seeing some offense come out of there. And not too much to add for that. 28, we got the Cincinnati Reds. So they've done all right. 2-2 against the Cubs in the division. And then they won against the Giants over the weekend. 2-1. So ever since that very big losing streak that the Reds had, they've been somewhat good. I know that's a long shot, but like 500 it seems over at least the last maybe 2.5 weeks. So the Reds have worked their way out, but they're still one of the weaker teams in the MLB. They, I think, have some nice young pieces that we could see them make some jumps forward once we see some of them come back. Next up, Detroit Tigers, number 27. 1-2 against Minnesota, 2-1 against Cleveland, which is a little 500 week, and they're pretty much the same kind of story as the Royals. Bottom of this week division, and Tigers, not too much going for them, but do just not been the steps forward that you want to see. Oakland, next up, 2-1 against Seattle, 1-3 against Texas. So Oakland is one of those teams that we expected to be in the bottom all season long. They pretty much jockeyed around these 4 spots. Ever so often they win a couple series, and like I said, but they've been fighting. They've had a good season in terms of giving teams a run for their money, but they're just not, we don't see them going anywhere from here, right? Number 25. Got them dropping down to the bottom row for the first time this season. 2-2 against the Reds, 1-1 against the White Sox over the weekend. Again, just 500 and nothing stellar coming out of Chicago. We watched them blow the game today on Sunday. And yeah, I guess it's one of those things like, looking ahead into the future, more not so much this season, but long term. Where do I see the Cubs going? And I don't see those players coming up for them just yet. It might take a year or two before we start seeing them consider themselves in this division. And with the other teams in this division, the weaker teams, we'll get to them in a minute, but it seems like they're a little bit ahead of the Cubs at this point. Number 24, we got the Colorado Rockies. 1-2 against Pittsburgh, 1-3 against Washington. So they lost 2 series this week, and not in great fashion either. Their pitching has really fallen off, especially this week with Marquez. He got crushed. Again, he's not had the greatest season after having a pretty great season last year. But the Rockies, after a pretty hot start in April, cooled off quite significantly in this past couple of weeks. And they might be one of the biggest falls from last week and this week. So number 23. Team that I was just talking about, Pittsburgh Pirates, 2-1 against Colorado. And then they went 1-2 against San Diego Padres. But all the games against the Padres were 2-4 or 4-2 and vice versa. So they put up a good run. And Hayes, man, Brian Hayes, he is going to be a fun guy to watch for these Pirates. So I got at least I have a little bit of highlight from them. And they're taking steps forward. Like, this is a Pirates team that was bottom row for the first 2 years of this power rankings. So we're starting to see some steps forward, but nowhere close to being ready to compete for playoffs. So second row pretty much makes a lot of sense. Next up, number 22, we got the Cleveland Guardians, 1-2 against Houston, 1-2 against Detroit. Another team that amazing hot April, cooling off in May, and pretty much coming back down to earth where we kind of thought they were, losing both the series this week. Cleveland not really having another chance at the playoffs. All these teams at this rate so far pretty much out of the playoff talk. We're going to start talking to some teams that might have a shot, a long shot, but not quite yet. Next up, Texas. 1-1 against the Angels, 3-1 against Oakland. Playing a little bit of spoiler against a cold Angels team and then beating up on their division rival, the Oakland Athletics. Texas is slowly but surely creeping up to 500. And believe it or not, they have a positive run differential. So some of those big signings, Semyon maybe starting to heat up a little bit after such a cold start. But Texas spent the money in the offseason, and it's starting to show its ugly head. But Texas, they have some ways to go. They could make a run. Who knows? Number 20, we have the Miami Marlins. 0-2 against Tampa, 1-2 against Atlanta. After some controversy early in the season in the comment section saying I had Miami too low, they're pretty much fallen even further since that comment. So here they are, number 20, and honestly, no playoff chance really. A lot of teams, they have to hop in this division, and it looks like the number 1 seed in the division is pretty much secured up by the Mets at this rate. So they got a long way to go, and honestly, looking ahead at the path to victory in this division long-term for the Marlins, it's definitely in jeopardy. I don't see where that's going to be coming from, but maybe someone out there has a better idea of what their farm system's like, because I'm not too sure on that. Number 19, moving on up and flirting with the third row, we got the Baltimore Orioles, 1-2 against the Yankees. So they've been playing spoiler, beating up on the Yankees pretty good this year. And by beating up, I mean they've actually won a game against the Yankees a couple of times. Then they went 2-2 against Boston over this weekend, and some intense games. They're going to be playing a 5th rubber match tomorrow, so we'll see who takes that. But Baltimore is definitely, they have a different kind of feel to them. They're putting up fight, and they're in this tough division where it's going to be really hard for them to make hay to make the playoffs this year. But by playing these teams over and over and over again, playing more games against better opponents, they're going to definitely improve, in my opinion, better than other teams that are bad, but also playing not as good opponents. So look for the Baltimore Orioles to be able to beat up on some of these teams below them, at least in my opinion. Brings us to number 18, entering into the third row. We have the Seattle Mariners, 1-2 against Oakland, 2-1 against Houston. So splitting 3-3 this week, all division games. I think we finally hit rock bottom. I think last week with the Mariners were 20th, something like that. Again, not a great week, but definitely think they're ahead of all those teams below them. At this rate, they're behind, I think, the Rangers in the standings. But I think on paper, maybe not on paper, but if they went head-to-head in a 5-game playoff format, I would still take the Mariners as the better club. They definitely had a cold stretch there. And I expect to see them a little bit better going forward. 17, with the Arizona Diamondbacks. They got swept by the Dodgers this weekend, and they actually did the sweeping earlier this week against Kansas City. So 2-4, because there was 4 games against the Dodgers and only 2 against Kansas City. But the Dodgers games, they kept it close a couple of times, but they also got smashed too, so it was tough, and the Dodgers are elite level ahead of them. But I think, again, I'm going to say this again, teams below them, they're going to beat. 16, we got the Chicago White Sox, 1-2 against Boston, 1-1 against the Cubs. A little bit of a slow week, a 5-game week, but there were some more injuries. Tim Anderson left the game today, a little bit concerning there. And the rotation, they just got bombarded. Keuchel has looked really bad, giving up tons of runs. The rotation has definitely missed Lane Sloan this year, and even more Carlos Rondon. So the rotation does not have the depth it did last year, and right now they're struggling. And they're outside of the playoff picture looking in. Look for them. That's pretty much kind of where they've been floating around. We'll see if they're either going to fall even further or go up. Number 15, we got the Red Sox, 2-1 against the White Sox, and 2-2 against Baltimore. So a winning week. Boston, I think that's back-to-back winning weeks for them, working their way up after they hit rock bottom at one point. Division, it's tough. They need to start winning the games that matter. And in this division, 4th isn't going to cut it. So you got to start winning your games against the Rays, the Jays, and the Yankees. They got beat up on them early in the season. So their next time around through those teams, they're going to have to make some steps forward if we're going to see them in the playoff race. Number 14, we got the Atlanta Braves, 2-2 against Philly and 2-1 against Miami. A winning week. But on the road, at home against Philly this week, they split the series, and the overall run differential, Philly did have the edge. So that's kind of why I do have Philly number 13, because they're pretty much neck and neck. So I'm going to talk about them kind of the same here. They're in the middle of that National League East. I think everyone here would say that the Mets are clear favorites to win the division, but there's maybe one playoff spot between these two. So number 13, right? We're right on the borderline of where playoffs begin and where playoffs end. I would have to say only one of these teams is making the playoffs, because you would have to suspect someone in the Central is going to take that other spot, and possibly in the West too, right? So there's only going to be one spot for grabs, in my opinion. Number 12. Going over to the West, just like I said, San Francisco 2-1 against the Mets. And then they lost to the Reds 2-1, and that's kind of hurts their chances. They got to be winning those series. You got to win the series against the bottom teams if you're going to be a good playoff team. Can't lose these ones. But right now, San Francisco's sitting pretty in third in that division. And again, this is one of those situations where only one team can really take it in the West. Is it going to be the Padres? Is it going to be the Dodgers? Or is it going to be San Francisco? And at this point, I have them on the outside looking in of those two other teams. Number 11, pretty rough week for the LA Angels. 1-1 against Texas. And then they got swept by the Toronto Blue Jays. 4 games. And not only was that, this game on today was just outrageous. Runs, blown leads, all sorts of things in today's game. Very exciting if you're a Jays fan. Yep. But for the Angels, not good. Not a good situation when the Angels finally go out of their division against a top team like the Jays that's going to be in a playoff spot, and they don't perform. So it was a playoff-like series, 4 games. So not looking good for the Angels. They also have Vladdy missing today. The Jays did. Number 10, dropping a couple of spots for St. Louis. They went 1-1 against Toronto. 2-2 against Milwaukee, and the reason they drop is because they're at home and they're splitting these series against teams that teams ahead of them now, but they're at home. They need to be picking up. They need to be winning more than they lose at home. So Cardinals, a little bit of concern. I've talked about it every week. The rotation, the bats we know, but the rotation win rate not being super consistent this year. He'll have one great game and follow up with a dud. Mikolas, same kind of thing. So we'll see what the Cardinals have in store. Number 9, Toronto Blue Jays, 1-1 against St. Louis. Again, giving them the edge because they were on the road. Really would have liked to see a third game in those two teams. Good series, because I think both games were 6-1, something like that, but they switched. And then the Jays, like I just talking about, swept the Angels, and that is the momentum the Jays needed. They had a really cold month there. They started April hot, and then like the end of April, beginning of May, very cold. Fell from 5-6 all the way down to 13 in the power rankings. But we're back and making a run at it. We'll see if they can compete with these other top American League East teams that we seem to talk about every season. Number 8, probably my biggest surprise of the season so far. 2-1 against Detroit, 2-2 against the Royals. We're the Minnesota Twins. What can I say? They took care of business this week. Not a great week, but not a bad week. They had a winning record against 2 weaker teams, division opponents. And at this rate, there's not really anyone challenging them for the division. So at number 8, it's pretty much solid playoff spot team. And that's what you have with the Twins right now. Their biggest competition is the White Sox, and they just be stumbling. The longer the season goes on, the longer this gap can stay this way, it's better for the Twins, and that's where I see it happening right now with between them in the American League Central. Number 7, got Tampa Bay Rays 2-0 against Miami, and then they split the series with the Yankees 2-2. And what can you say? Between them and the Yankees gotta be pretty happy. The Rays have had their number for a number of years now. So for them to split the series, Yankees gotta be happy. Rays being solid, continuing just to be a solid franchise year after year after year. I think this is the highest I've had them this season, and we honestly can see them go higher. They just keep playing the way they are. Number 6, Houston 2-1 against Cleveland, 1-2 against Seattle. These top 5, or this top line, I think is the exact same as last week. So if you're a sub and you watch these every week, and if you're not, do that right now. What are you doing? Why haven't you liked and subscribed, etc.? But it's going to be the same. Houston, they're 500. There's not a real reason to drop them below Tampa, but at the same rate, if you're going 500, even though you're getting a bigger lead over the Angels in your division, you didn't make much other progress to be a top World Series contender. So right now, for me, they're on the outside looking in as a top 6 team, bringing us to number 5. The Padres 1-2 against Milwaukee, 2-1 against Pittsburgh. Again, they lose to a team that is ahead of them, and on paper, Milwaukee, like I said, 2-2 against St. Louis. These two teams are very evenly matched, and you could intertwine them, but I'm giving it to Milwaukee obviously now, because they won the head-to-head matchup this week, and those two teams are just top teams. Number 3, we got the New York Mets. 1-2 against San Francisco, but then they just secure the division even more by going 3-0 against Phillies. Mind you, it might not be 3-0 against Phillies because I am filming this with the late innings. We're in the 8th inning of the game and they're up. Last week I did the same thing and I said, oh, they're going to end. So let's hope they just keep it together. At the end of the day, if they lose to Philly in this last Sunday night game, it's not going to make a difference. They're still number 3. Philly's still number 13. So we like to film these earlier because then we get more views. So it's all about the views. It's all about the YouTube algorithm. Number 2, we got the LA Dodgers. 2-1 against Washington. 4-0 against Arizona. They're just beating up on the low teams. And not only that, the scores are double digits for them on offense. They're a great team. They're definitely the best in the National League. The Mets are a good team too. And then number 1, we got the same team as always. Not always, but we got the Yankees. They went 2-1 against Baltimore, 2-2 against Tampa. They're holding on by a thread, I would say, but they still have the best record in the American League East, which is on its own is something to be proud of. But I can see the Dodgers eventually overtaking number 1 here, just because they're just crazy. They get it done. Their division seems to be that slightly weaker, less challenging than the Yankees. So I think that's going to make a difference going forward, guys. But let me know what you guys think of the power rankings. Where should your team be? Did I mess something up? Something completely out of whack? What do you guys think? And like I said at the beginning of this video, make sure to follow me on Twitter, like, subscribe, join the community. Guys, I do this for you guys, and it's a lot of fun. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and I hope you guys like it. We're going to keep it going. Thanks for watching. Peace out.